Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So, last class we were discussing about the physical characteristics of water. So, among the physical characteristics of water, we have discussed about turbidity. Okay. So, the next physical characteristic is your water. Okay. Sorry, it's a color. So, color actually what happens is that what imparts color to the water is that the all the organic matters which are dissolved in the water, also from the the vegetations which are already decayed, or any sort of inorganic materials, whether it can be a colored soil. So all these things, they impart color to the water. Okay. And also and also the there are algae, there are aquatic microorganisms in the water also. So all those things also, they impart a color to the water. So this color actually, it is not that harmful, or it is not that objectionable for human beings from the health point of view. But what happens is that this is due to psychological reasons, or due to aesthetic reasons, that we people, we don't want to drink any kind of water which is colored. Okay, so we need a colorless water. So this thing is that the color, it is no, you can measure, or you can detect the color by some, there are standard one tube is there, which is standard glass tube is there, which is known as your Nestler's tube. So in the Nestler's tube, there are already some standard colors are there. Okay, the Nestler's tube, it contains some standard color solutions or color intensities, you can say. And whatever, suppose you are given a water sample which is colored, so what you need to do is that you need to just compare the color of your sample with the Nestler's tube color sample. So whichever color it is, like matching, so that amount of color, it is present in the water. So it is like you get it through the Nestler's tube. So like in case of turbidity, with the standard unit of turbidity was a silica. Yes, 1 milligram of silica was there when it is dissolved in 1 liter of distilled water. So in a same thing for color, what is done, the standard unit for color is actually, it is produced by how, it is produced by mixing 1 milligram of platinum cobalt, which is dissolved in 1 liter of distilled water. So if you take 1 liter of distilled water and you mix it with the platinum cobalt, 1 milligram of platinum cobalt, so you are going to get the standard unit of color. Okay, and the color, there is a permissible limit for each and every characteristic. So for color, there is a permissible limit. So what is the permissible limit for domestic supplies? It is your 20 ppm, or parts per million, or milligram per liter. Okay. So again, for for if there are small color intensities are there, so if you need to measure the color intensities, the for a very small color intensity, so there is an instrument which is known as your tintometer. So you can use tintometer, and you can measure the color. Okay, so this is about your about the physical characteristic color. And also one more thing, if for public supplies, the color number on this cobalt scale, it should not exceed 20, and it should preferably be less than 10. Okay, so in the cobalt scale, since the standard unit is cobalt scale, so there the value, it should not exceed 20 for public supplies, and it should preferably be less than your 10. Okay, so next is your taste and odor. So taste and odor, how the taste and odor is imparted to the water. So this is also, the all the organic materials which are of, or it might be inorganic materials or inorganic salts also, or there are some dissolved gases also. So all these things, they what they do, they impart the taste and odor to the water. So, and this taste and odor, they always happens together, they go hand in hand. So this taste and odor, you can say it can be caused by the presence of some dissolved gases such as hydrogen sulfide gas is there, methane is there, carbon dioxide is there, oxygen is there. So all these dissolved gases, when it is combined together with this organic materials, then again there are mineral substances in water, like like sodium chloride is there, then carbonates are there, sulfates are there. So all these things, they together, they impart taste and odor to the water, which goes hand in hand. Okay, so now you need to obviously you have to measure how much of odor is is present in the water. You have to measure the extent of taste or odor that is present in the sample of water. So you can measure the extent of taste or odor by a term which is known as odor intensity. Okay, so odor intensity, and if particularly I would refer to a term which is known as your threshold odor number. Okay, so there is a term which is known as your threshold odor number. So threshold odor number, it is actually it is a you can refer it to as a dilution ratio. So suppose you are taking a sample of water which is very odory in smell or odory in taste. So you are taking a sample which has this like its odor and smelly water is there. So you are taking another odor free water you are taking, so it might be a distilled water. So you are pouring the distilled water on the your other sample. So you are going on pouring the sample until the odory sample or the odory water sample, it the just odor just vanishes. Okay, so as soon as the odor vanishes, so that point is determined, and that point is known as your threshold odor number. So that is your basically the threshold odor number. So suppose here you can see is like if you are taking a 40 milliliter sample of water. So if you are taking a 40 milliliter sample of water and you are pouring distilled water to that 40 ml of sample of water, and now after pouring this for the distilled water, the 40 ml sample of water, it is now diluted and it reaches to 200 milliliter. Okay, so at 200 milliliter, what happens? The that sample of water, it just lose its or the taste or odor, it vanishes. So how will you find out the threshold odor number? You just need to divide it by the raw sample, the diluted sample divided by the raw sample. Okay, so that will give you the threshold odor number. So in case of here, 40 ml sample of water is the, it was the raw sample, and the 200 milliliter, it is the diluted sample. So you just divide the diluted sample by the undiluted sample, that is 200 divided by 40. So it comes up to 5. So the threshold order number for that particular sample of water, it is 5. So, like permissible limits we have for each and every physical characteristic. So, for public water supplies, the water it should always be free from odor, and the threshold odor number, it should be between 1 and it should never exceed 3. So it should be the threshold odor number, it should be between 1 and 3. So that is your for your public supplies. Okay, so next physical characteristic is your temperature. So temperature is, like the testing, if you test the temperature of water, like it has no practical significance, or it has no like sense, that is not, it is not possible. Usually it doesn't give any treatment to control the temperature of water. There is no treatment to control the temperature of water. But from the you have to, from the bookish or from the academic point of view, you have to know that what is the permissible limit, or what temperature should actually be there in the water. So the temperature, it should be always be about 10 degrees Celsius is always desirable. And temperatures, it should not exceed 25 degrees. So it is between 10 degrees Celsius and your 25 degree Celsius. Okay, so next is your specific conductivity of water. So specific conductivity of water is what it is, like how much amount of dissolved salts, okay, that is present in the water. So you can estimate that one by the specific conductivity of water. So how much of total amount of dissolved salts are present in the water, so you can estimate the quantity of the dissolved salts by the term specific conductivity of water. So specific conductivity of water, again, it can be measured by there is a tester which is known as your portable ionic water tester is there. And also it can be expressed, the unit for the water tester, or for the specific conductivity is your micromoles per centimeter, which is the test is conducted at 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is about your specific conductivity of water. So all these five are the physical characteristics of your raw water. Now, after knowing the physical characteristics, you have to know what are the chemical characteristics of water. So chemical this test or the chemical analysis of water, you have to determine. For knowing the chemical analysis of water, you have to determine the chemical characteristics of the water. So chemical characteristics, by the name itself, you can know. So these are all chemically tested. Test will be there. So like there are pH value is there, hardness test is there, then chloride content, nitrogen content, then iron and manganese, then all these things, dissolved salts, then total solids, dissolved solids. So all these things are your chemical characteristics of your water. It comes under chemical characteristics of water. So first, let us come to the first the point, that is your total solids and suspended solids. So the total solids and suspended solids, first we will know about the total the total solids. So what is the total solid? It is the summation of, you can say, suspended solids and dissolved solids. The total amount of solids, that is like it is the summation of your suspended solids as well as your dissolved solids. So this total amount of solids, how can you determine the total amount of solids? This is a test which can be done in laboratory. So the total amount of solids, it can be determined by suppose you are taking a sample of water and you just evaporate the sample of water, and suppose at 20 at some degree Celsius. So after that, suppose 105 degrees Celsius. So like that, you just evaporate the sample of water, and then you just weigh the whatever the dry residues are left on the filter paper, or whatever dry residues are left out. So you just weigh that sample, and like that you can finally find out the total amount of solids. And also there is a process how to find out the suspended solids. So the suspended solids, it can be found out by, you have to just filter the water sample. So whatever water sample you will get, you just filter it, and you have to weigh the after filtering, whatever residues are left out on the residue paper or on the filter paper. So that is your, you just weigh it and you will get the suspended solids. So that one is a suspended solids. Now, as we know, the total solids is the summation of your suspended solids and dissolved solids. So you just now you got the value of total solids and you got the value of suspended solids. So now you just subtract it and you will get the value of dissolved solids. So this is just the process of how to find out the total solids and suspended solids and dissolved solids in the laboratory. So also here the total solids and suspended solids also we have the permissible limits we have. So the total permissible limit of solids in water is generally limited to 500 ppm. So it should be between 500 to 1000 ppm, whether it is your total solids or suspended solids, doesn't matter, but the solids or the total solids or the suspended solids or dissolved solids, it should be between your 500 to 1000 ppm parts per million or your milligram per liter. Okay, so this is about your total solids and suspended solids and dissolved solids. So next we come to the pH value of water. So pH value everybody have studied in your earlier semesters or in your school days. So pH value is what? pH value, it indicates the logarithm of the reciprocal. Okay, so this is the just the the technical definition of pH value. So in short or in simple words, if you what is a pH value of water, you are going to find out whether the water sample is acidic or basic or it is neutral. So the scientific terminal, the scientific definition, if somebody is going to ask you, or then you need to know that the pH value is it indicates the logarithm of, or you can say the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration. Or in other words, you can say that the pH value of water, it indicates the logarithm of reciprocal of hydrogen ion concentration present in the water. So it generally gives you the, it is an indicator also, you can say it is an indicator which allows you to determine whether the sample it is acidic or it is basic or it is a neutral one. So there is one scale which now the values, it goes up to from 0 to 14. So if it is between 0 to 7, then we say that the sample is acidic, and if it goes between 7 to 14, so we say that the sample is basic. And if it is between 7, so not 7 directly, we don't get a value like 7. So if there is a range, so we say that the water is negative neutral. So in this way we find out the pH value of water. So we have the this formula for pH value, as you can see here: log of 10 divided by 1 plus H plus ion, which is your, this is the formula for your pH value. Okay, so also we have the permissible limits of the pH value, which is your this pH value of water. Okay, not this one. If it is more than 7, then obviously it will be alkaline, and if it is less than 7, then it will be acidic, and the maximum acidity will be at 0 value of the pH, and the maximum alkalinity will be a value of pH equal to 14. Obviously, so if it is very near to 0, then it will be the this one is a very acidic one, and if it is more near to a value 14, so it is a more alkaline one. So there is also the permissible limit for the pH value, as we say. So the permissible limit for for public supplies, it is your 6.6 to 8.5. So you have to remember this value, that the permissible limit for the pH value of public supplies, it should range between 6.6 to 8.5. So basically in all these MCQs and all, so this question is most probably most frequently this question is asked. Okay, so now coming to the next characteristic, that is your hardness of water. Okay, that is your hardness of water. So, hardness of water actually, in simple, if you say what is a hardness of water, so like this is the like characteristic feature of the water where there is no sufficient ladder formation is there because the water is very hard. So whenever the water is mixed with like soap or any kind of detergent, so what happens that the water it is there is no this sufficient formation of ladder or foam. So that is just a simple definition, not definition but simple characteristic of the hard water. So the main thing is that actually what is the hardness of water? When the water it is there is calcium and magnesium salts are present in water, so that is then it is said to be the water is having it is a hard water. Okay, so if there are calcium and magnesium salts present in the water, so this is known as your hardness of water. Now we have two types of hardnesses are there. One is we have a temporary hardness and the other one is your permanent hardness. So temporary hardness of water, it can be easily removed. Okay, temporary hardness of water can be easily removed. Okay, and the permanent hardness of water, it is actually not that easy to remove the permanent hardness from water. So we have. Okay, so like for the the temporary hardness. So the temporary hardness is actually, what is temporary hardness? If the water or if the bicarbonates and carbonates of calcium and magnesium are present in water, so the water it is said to be temporary, or the hardness of the water is said to be temporary. So temporary hardness is what? If the bicarbonates and carbonates of calcium and magnesium are present in the water, so it is said to be temporary hardness. And on the other hand, if the the sulfates, chlorides and nitrates, so all these things of calcium or magnesium are present in water, so they are said to be permanent hardness of water. Okay, so sulfates, chlorides and nitrates of calcium or magnesium are present in water, then it is said to be your permanent hardness. Clear? So these two, and this temporary hardness, it can also be removed by boiling. If you simply boil the water, or if you simply add a lime to the water, so this temporary hardness it can be removed. Okay, but permanent hardness, there are some treatment processes for removing the permanent hardness. We will study that later. So that one it can be removed, but there are certain processes for removing the permanent hardness. Okay, you simply by boiling you cannot remove the permanent hardness, or this permanent hardness, it is also known as non-carbonate hardness, and the temporary hardness, it is also known as the carbonate hardness. Okay, so these two are the about your hardness. So up to here today we will do. Okay, let's wrap up to here today. So rest of the part we will go through in the next class. Okay, so thank you everyone for listening. You may leave the class now. Thank you.